How would you react if you were given a glass of dirty water at a restaurant? Most of us would look into the glass, spot a dead bug, a chipped rim, or a spotted glass, and kindly return the first one for a new glass of water that is clean. Why would we do that? Because in most people's eyes, that first glass of water has been tainted or polluted in some sort of way. We no longer want to drink it. It is viewed as undrinkable in our eyes. According to National Geographic, 3% of the world's water is fresh. And of that 3%, only 1.2% is available for human consumption. If we were to put that in more reliable terms, or more understandable terms, let's use a US dollar. So $1 as the global supply of water. 3 cents of that dollar is the world's fresh water, and 1.2% of that would be 0.4 of 1 cent, as in less than half a cent of like a dollar is how much we have in fresh water that you, me, the world can use to eat, drink, and survive, do everything we need with water. Now, although that sounds like such a small number, we know that every time we turn on the faucet, water comes out, and it rains all the time, and we see water in the world around us so vividly, so we must write off, oh, it's a small number, but it doesn't have to be that small. We always have water. That's not the case. I would like to say that water, potable water specifically, is a non-renewable resource. Now, people are going to try and argue that it rains all the time and there's fresh water around us in swamps and creeks and streams and lakes and rivers all around us. So how is potable water non-renewable? We have polluted Earth to such an extent to where the amount of time it takes for Earth to naturally filter and purify water has exponentially grown. Something that used to only take a couple of years to filter now takes 20, 30, 40 years because of the amount of ozone, like random chemicals, and just general pollution that we have in our air and in our land and in our groundwater, all of these different places. Today I would like to further discuss with you guys the scarcity of water and just how we can combat the issues that we have. So if I were to classify water scarcity a little bit better, I would say that 784 million people today, in this very instant, do not have consistent access to water. Now, of course, we know that 784 million people is a large number, but how do we classify that? 1 in every 10. 1 in every 10 human beings does not have consistent access to water, something that we need to survive. How does that happen? Furthermore, we see that 22% of the world's health facilities do not have access to water. Health facilities. What do I mean in that sense? I'm talking about dental offices, operating rooms, doctor's offices that don't have a running tap to wash their hands prior to cutting someone open or removing someone's tooth or anything like that. These statistics come from LifeWater, which is a forefront nonprofit working on the water scarcity and pollution front, working to combat the issues that we have. But these statistics can open an eye as to just how scarce water is, because we always think that because we are in a developed country, this is something that does not affect us, when it does. If you were to walk into a room, of course, not everyone, but that 1 to 10 rule still applies. For every 10 people you know, one of those people, on paper, does not have access to water. Now, the United States Geological Survey came out with a partnership review of the world's aquifers and stated that 21 of the world's 37 largest aquifers are currently receding today. What does that mean? Groundwater that at any given moment is supposed to be replenishing is depleting itself vastly. Also, there was recently an article by BBC that stated that Mexico City, one of the forefront cities of Mexico, has to import 40% of its potable water day to day. 40%. They can't make almost half of their water requirements. And of course, I'm talking about this on a global scale, and we all think, well, that doesn't affect me, but it does. The UN in 2018 came out with a survey that said that 4.8 up to 5.7 billion people will not have consistent access to water by the year 2050. Their specific wording was water scarce areas. They will be living in water scarce areas. If you further look into that, water scarce areas means that 80% of the year they cannot make quotas for their per capita water usage in those cities. 80% out of the year, a city could not have enough water for you, for me, for the entire city's occupants. And we think about that, okay, 5.7 billion. That's half of the world. 1 in every 2 people, basically, if not more, won't have the water that they are used to having. That scares me. I don't know about anyone else. But up until this point, I've talked about it more on like the global side of, oh, well, all of these different places, because we still think of ourselves as somewhere that like won't run out of water. But let's take Flint as an example. I looked into the Flint water crisis, and I found a story about a woman named Leanne Walters. She is a mother of 4, and she has 2 twin children. Now, this article was written a couple years back in 2016, but she had 2 twins that at the time were 4 years old. A year went past, and one of her children did not gain any weight. Because of the lead water crisis that's happening in Flint, he was getting lead poisoning from his baths and brushing his teeth and day-to-day things. He and his brother have a 25-pound wage gap, which is insane for a child of such a small age. And you may think, oh, well, that's not that bad. It is that bad because he is not alone. There are children all over that city and elders and women who have no choice but to turn on the faucet to water that they know is poisonous. There are people all around the globe that do not have access to clean water, and that is just as bad as not having water at all. Having to drink something knowing that it's bad for you. That's gotta suck. That's gotta suck. But she tried to bring it to people's attention to try and see if there was some way to correct the water that she was having access to so that her child could become less ill and maybe get to his brother's level. And they told her she was crazy. They told her that it was simply her own neglect for her child. How do you, as a mother, take that in? My son is getting lead poisoning, and it's my fault. I can't leave. This is where my life is. I can't leave, but I have to watch my child go through a horrific thing, such as lead poisoning, and slowly, how do I say it? He slowly become a shell of a human. That's awful. What I'm trying to say is that water scarcity isn't something that's just happening in third world countries or somewhere out of sight and out of mind. Water scarcity is a thing that affects me, it affects you, it affects everyone around us. But how do we fix it? Because we think, okay, yeah, I've heard that you turn off the water when you're brushing your teeth and you try to take a smaller shower, but of course, no one's enforcing that, so it's purely up to your discretion whether or not you do that. I urge everyone to look a little bit more into what your city's needs are, because every city has different things. But try and support companies that work hard to combat the issue of water scarcity. As I said earlier, there are places such as Life Water and others, nonprofits that are working hard to try and stop the incoming doom that we have with water scarcity, the incoming fight that we will no longer be able to ignore. Donating, as well as just making yourself more aware, is all that we could ask for. I hope that everyone here understands just how significant we all play towards the role of beating water scarcity. Before I leave and I continue to urge you to please look into the subject further, I'd like to leave you guys with a quote. Thousands have lived without love, but none have lived without water. By W.D. Hardin. Sit with that. It's true. Thank you.